When I was 18, I left high school without graduating. My first job was as a dishwasher in the back of a small hotel. From there, I moved on to washing cars and then washing floors with a janitorial service. For the next few years, I drifted and worked at various laboring jobs, earning my living by the sweat of my brow. I worked in sawmills and factories. I worked on farms and ranches. I worked in the tall timber with a chainsaw and dug wells when the logging season ended. I worked as a construction laborer on tall buildings and as a seaman on a Norwegian freighter in the North Atlantic. Often I slept in my car or in cheap rooming houses. When I was 23, I was working as an itinerant farm laborer during the harvest, sleeping on the hay in the barn and eating with the farmer's family. I was uneducated, unskilled, and, at the end of the harvest, unemployed once more. When I could no longer find a laboring job, I got a job in straight commission sales, cold calling from office to office and from door to door. I would often work all day long to make a single sale so that I could pay for my rooming house and have a place to sleep that night. This was not a great start at life. Then one day I took out a piece of paper and wrote down an outrageous goal for myself. It was to earn $1,000 per month in door-to-door and office-to-office selling. I folded up the piece of paper, put it away, and never found it again. But 30 days later, my entire life had changed. During that time, I discovered a technique for closing sales that tripled my income from the very first day. Meanwhile, the owner of my company sold out to an entrepreneur who had just moved into town. Exactly 30 days after I had written down my goal, he took me aside and offered me $1,000 per month to head up the sales force and teach the other people what it was that I was doing that enabled me to be selling so much more than anyone else. I accepted his offer, and from that day forward, my life was never the same. Within 18 months, I had moved from that job to another, and then to another. I went from personal selling to becoming a sales manager with people selling for me. I recruited and built a 95-person sales force. I went literally from worrying about my next meal to walking around with a pocket full of $20 bills. I began teaching my salespeople how to write out their goals and how to sell more effectively. In almost no time at all, they doubled and tripled and increased their incomes as much as 10 times. Many of them are today millionaires and multimillionaires. It's important to note that since those days in my early 20s, my life has not been a smooth series of upward steps. It has included many ups and downs, marked by occasional successes and temporary failures. I have traveled, lived, and worked in more than 80 countries, learning French, German, and Spanish along the way and working in 22 different fields. As a result of inexperience and sometimes sheer stupidity, I have spent or lost everything I made and had to start over again several times. In every case when this happened, I would begin by sitting down with a piece of paper and laying out a new set of goals for myself using the methods that I'll explain in the sessions ahead. After several years of hit-and-miss goal setting and goal achieving, I finally decided to collect everything I had learned into a single system. By assembling these ideas and strategies in one place, I developed a goal-setting methodology and process with a beginning, middle, and end, and began to follow it every day. Within 1 year, following this blueprint for goal achieving, my life had changed once more. In January of that year, to start, I was living in a rented apartment with rented furniture. I was $35,000 in debt and driving a used car that wasn't paid for. By December of that year, I was living in my own $100,000 condominium. I had a new Mercedes, had paid off all my debts, and I had $50,000 in the bank. Then I really got serious about success. I realized that this goal-setting stuff was incredibly powerful. I invested hundreds and thousands of hours reading and researching on goal setting and goal achieving, synthesizing the best ideas I could find into a complete goal setting and achieving process that worked with incredible effectiveness. In 1981, I began teaching my system in workshops and seminars that have now reached more than 2 million people in 35 countries. I began audio taping and videotaping my courses so that others could use them. We have now trained hundreds of thousands of people in these principles in multiple languages all over the world. What I found was that these ideas work everywhere for everyone in virtually every country, no matter what your education, experience, or background may be when you begin. Most of all, these ideas have made it possible for me and many thousands of others to take complete control over our lives. The regular and systematic practice of goal setting has taken us from poverty to prosperity, from frustration to fulfillment, from underachievement to success and satisfaction. This system will do the same for you. What I learned early on is that any plan is better than no plan at all, and it is not necessary to reinvent the wheel. All the answers have already been found. There are hundreds of thousands and even millions of men and women who have started with nothing and achieved great success following these principles. And what others have done, you can do as well if you just learn how. In the sessions ahead, you will learn 21 of the most important ideas and strategies ever discovered for achieving everything you could ever want in life. You will find that there are no limits to what you can accomplish except for the limits you place on your own imagination. And since there are no limits to what you can imagine, there are no limits to what you can achieve. This is one of the greatest discoveries of all. Let us begin. As Confucius said, a journey of 1,000 leagues begins with a single step.